My name is Margaret Chen, and at 63 years old, I thought I knew my husband Robert inside and out. We'd been married for 38 years, raised two beautiful daughters together, built a life filled with Sunday dinners, anniversary trips, and the comfortable silence that comes from truly knowing someone. Or so I believed. It was a crisp October morning when I decided to deep clean Robert's car as a surprise. He'd been working such long hours at the accounting firm, and I wanted to do something thoughtful, something that said, "I see you, I appreciate you." I found the vacuum in the garage, gathered my cleaning supplies, and got to work. The front seats were typical receipts, a few pens, some loose change. But when I reached under the passenger seat, my fingers brushed against something smooth and cylindrical. I pulled it out slowly. A tube, white and clinical looking, personal, lubricant. My heart stopped. Then it started racing, pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Robert and we hadn't been intimate in that way for years. Medical issues on both sides had made it difficult, and we'd found other ways to show our love. Or at least, I thought we had. I sat there in that car, holding that tube, and the world seemed to tilt sideways. 38 years of marriage, and suddenly, I was questioning everything. Every late night at the office, every business trip, every time he'd seemed distant or distracted, the practical part of my brain kicked in. I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not without knowing more. So I did something I'm not proud of, but desperation makes us do strange things. I went to the hardware store down on Maple Street. Old Mr. Henderson was working the counter, same as he had been for 40 years. "Morning, Margaret. What can I help you with today?" "I need industrial strength adhesive," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The strongest you have." He showed me several options, and I chose one that looked remarkably similar to the tube I'd found. Same size, same color scheme, different contents entirely. Back home, made the switch with trembling hands. Lubricant into a plastic bag, hidden in my dresser drawer. Industrial glue into the car, carefully placed exactly where I'd found the original. Then I waited. 2 days passed. Normal days filled with morning coffee, crossword puzzles, and the evening news. Robert seemed perfectly fine. Cheerful, even. He kissed my cheek before leaving for work. Same as always. On the third evening, he didn't come home at his usual time. 6 o'clock passed, then 7. By 8, my phone rang. "Mrs. Chen?" An unfamiliar woman's voice. "This is Riverside Hospital. Your husband has been brought in. He's stable, but we need you to come right away." Drove to that hospital, with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Part of me felt sick with worry. Part of me felt something darker, a grim satisfaction that the truth was finally emerging from the shadows where it had been hiding. The emergency room was busy that evening. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell of antiseptic and anxiety filled the air. A nurse directed me to a private room in the back, and there was Robert. He was sitting on an examination table, covered by a hospital gown, his face the color of old newspaper. But he wasn't alone. Next to him, also in a hospital gown, also looking absolutely mortified, was Jennifer Ashford. Jennifer, our neighbor from 3 houses down. The woman who'd brought us casseroles when Robert's mother passed away. Who'd been at our 4th of July barbecues. Whose husband, Paul, played golf with Robert every Saturday morning. Or so I'd thought. A doctor stood nearby, trying to maintain professional composure, but clearly struggling not to show his surprise at the situation. "Mrs. Chen," he said gently, "your husband and Miss Ashford experienced an unusual medical emergency. They're both going to be fine, but they required intervention to separate them." The room went very, very quiet. I looked at Robert. Really looked at him. This man I'd loved since I was 25 years old. This man I'd trusted with everything, my heart, my life, my future. "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "Calm." Too calm. Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. Jennifer started crying quietly. "Margaret," Robert finally whispered, "please, I can explain." "How long?" I repeated. 2 years, he said, and those 2 words cracked something inside me that I didn't know could break. The doctor, sensing the moment, quietly excused himself. The nurse followed, and then it was just the three of us in that small, sterile room. Why? I asked. Not angry yet, just genuinely confused. What did I do wrong? Nothing, Robert said quickly, and there were tears in his eyes now too. Margaret, you did nothing wrong. You were perfect. You are perfect. I felt old. I felt invisible. And Jennifer made me feel seen again. Earned to Jennifer, this woman I'd called my friend. And Paul, your husband of 30 years? He made you feel invisible too? She couldn't meet my eyes. Paul's a good man, she whispered. But we become roommates, not partners. Robert and I, we understood each other's loneliness. I should have been furious. I should have screamed or cried or thrown something. But instead, I felt surprisingly clear-headed. Perhaps it was shock, or perhaps it was the strange calm that comes when the worst thing you've imagined actually happens, and you realize you can survive it. I found the lubricant, I said quietly, under the car seat 3 days ago. Robert's face went even paler. I replaced it with industrial glue. The silence that followed was profound. Then, unexpectedly, I started to laugh. Not a happy laugh. A laugh born from exhaustion and betrayal and the sheer absurdity of it all. Here, we were three people in late middle age, caught in circumstances so ridiculous they could have been from a bad sitcom. You know what the worst part is? I said, wiping my eyes. I was cleaning your car to be kind, to surprise you, to show you I still cared after all these years. Robert's face crumpled completely then. Real, genuine remorse written in every line. We all went home eventually separately. Robert went to stay with his brother across town. Jennifer had to face Paul, and I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that their divorce was swift and bitter. As for me and Robert, we sat down a week later in a marriage counselor's office. Not because I'd forgiven him, not even because I was sure I wanted to stay married, but because after 38 years, I owed it to myself to understand what had happened, to understand what I wanted next. The counselor, Dr. Sarah Williams, was a kind woman in her 50s with sympathetic eyes that had clearly seen every variation of human struggle. Margaret, she said during our third session, you don't have to decide anything right now. You don't owe anyone forgiveness on their timeline. I don't know if I can trust him again, I admitted. Every time he leaves the house, I'll wonder. Robert sat across from me, looking smaller somehow than he had before. I'll do anything, he said. Anything at all. I'll quit my job. I'll move if you want. I'll spend the rest of my life proving that I'm sorry. But will you spend the rest of your life not doing it again? I asked. Because sorry isn't enough. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. We talked for months. Sometimes in therapy, sometimes at home. I learned that Robert had felt increasingly invisible as he aged, his contributions at work overlooked, his body betraying him with aches and limitations. Jennifer had made him feel vital again, desirable again. I understood the feeling, actually. I'd felt invisible too in different ways, but I'd never betrayed our vows. Still, those long conversations, something unexpected happened. We started actually talking to each other again. Really talking, in ways we hadn't for years. About our fears, our disappointments, our dreams. For whatever time we had left, I told him about how lonely I'd been, even with him in the house. How I'd devoted myself to being a good wife and mother, and somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten to be Margaret. He told me about his terror of becoming irrelevant, of fading into old age without significance. Neither of these things excused what he'd done, but they helped me understand the humans we'd both become: flawed, frightened, struggling people trying to find meaning in the latter chapters of our lives. The neighborhood, of course, talked endlessly. Jennifer moved away about 6 months later. Paul stayed, but he stopped coming to neighborhood gatherings. The whole situation had sent ripples through our community that would take years to settle. My daughters were supportive, but confused. Emily, our youngest, wanted me to leave immediately. Mom, you deserve better, she'd say during our phone calls. Rachel, the oldest, was more measured. What do you want, Mom? Not what we want for you. What do you want? And that was the real question, wasn't it? After nearly a year of counseling, of painful honesty, of learning to sit with uncomfortable truths. I made my decision. I chose to stay, not because I was weak, not because I was afraid of being alone, but because, surprisingly, I wanted to. In the rubble of our broken trust, we'd found something we'd lost years ago: real intimacy, real connection, the kind that comes from being utterly vulnerable with another person and choosing to love them anyway. Robert sold his share of the accounting firm and retired early. We started traveling, something we'd always said we'd do someday. We went to places we dreamed about: the coast of Maine, the mountains of Colorado, a small village in Italy where the sunlight felt like liquid gold. We also started volunteering together at a community center, helping other couples navigate the complexities of long-term marriage. It felt right somehow to take our pain and turn it into something useful for others. Trust didn't come back overnight. Some days were harder than others. There were moments when I'd see him checking his phone and feel that familiar spike of anxiety. But slowly, day by day, we rebuilt what had been broken, because that's the thing about betrayal: shatters everything. But in the reconstruction, if you're brave enough to try, you can build something stronger. Not better than what you had before necessarily, but different, more honest, more intentional. I think about that tube of industrial glue sometimes, about my moment of anger-fueled creativity, about how close we came to ending everything in the most ridiculous way possible. And I think about forgiveness. Real forgiveness isn't forgetting. It isn't pretending the hurt never happened. It's choosing every single day to move forward despite the scars. It's deciding that the person you loved for 38 years still deserves a chance to be better. Robert isn't perfect. I'm not perfect. Our marriage isn't perfect, but it's ours. Rebuilt from the ground up, stronger in the broken places, held together by something more powerful than glue. Held together by choice. By forgiveness. By love that's been tested and survived. And somehow, at 63 years old, I'm discovering parts of myself and my husband I never knew existed. We're learning to grow old together with intention, with honesty, with grace. The neighbors still whisper sometimes when we walk by, holding hands like teenagers. Let them whisper. They don't know our whole story. They don't know the work we've done, the tears we've shed, the forgiveness we've fought for. They just see an older couple who survived a scandal. We see two people who chose each other again and again, even when it would have been easier to walk away. And that, I've learned, is what real love looks like in the end. Not the fairy tale beginning, but the messy, complicated middle, and choosing to keep showing up anyway.